Good evening. This is Ben Frazier for Group B in Influence Through Entertainment, responding to Week 4's readings and the questions that we ask or that I ask. This is Group B, and Bill does the same thing with Group A. He responds early in the week. I respond later in the week. Let me just encourage you in Group B to go ahead and listen to Bill's response. Bill is the author of this book. No one's going to out talk him or know what he's talking about. So he would be the best person to get the information from. I did want to go ahead and respond to the readings of my group, Group B, but nevertheless, it's useful to hear him respond to his because he's so familiar with the book. And hopefully you'll listen to these too, Group B, if you've responded to the questions which you have. Now, I wanted to do a couple of announcement kinds of things. First, just to make sure you understand, I am not giving weekly grades. What I do is at the end of the class, I give a grade for all your classroom participation, just you would if you're in a regular class. You don't get well, sometimes you do, but most often you don't get a grade for every time you come. You get a grade at the end. However, if you're having problems, and I've talked to a couple of you, I will mention that to you, and I will talk to you and say, hey, here, you're weak in this area, you need to strengthen this. I'm going to be looking over what you've done the first 5 weeks, next week or so. Halfway through, week 8, week 9, somewhere there, I will give you a grade for the first half of class, so you'll know how you're doing and still have time to change it and bring your grade up in the last half of the class. But I also will look and give you a heads up within the next week or so if there's any others that I've missed. But I've talked to a couple. If I haven't talked to you, you're probably doing okay. So I don't want you to worry about that. That's something you can handle as long as you're making an honest effort and getting on time and getting the answers in. So I will be giving a grade to you halfway through, just to remind you. Now, it was a real snowy day here. We've got snow outside. School closed early, so I had to come home, and it kind of disrupted my day. Nobody knows here in Virginia how to get around in the snow, so it causes all kinds of traffic problems. Hopefully, I won't have to go anywhere tomorrow. I can stay here and do my work. But that's why I'm up in my house responding to you tonight. So I want to go through the 4 questions, and let's just go through. The first one had to do with Humlog, and why was Humlog a novel idea in India, and why was it so influential to its audience, and its audience response so dramatic, and how did Humlog influence the Indian society? So Wesley, Jennifer, Jerry, Mary, all those talked about the importance of the novel program genre in India because it was novel in India. Wesley particularly talked about how the timing was so important in terms of where television was in the country, and it's important in the country. And then this program came along that captured the imagination of the audience, and it was very, very entertainment-wise successful. Jennifer talked about the importance of research, and but Michelle said, yeah, research is important, but Humlog did not do proper formative research. So, you know, there's action research, there's formative research, and then there's research at the end, evaluative research to see how the program is done. But formative research helps us understand how people potentially will respond to the programming. And there wasn't proper formative research done, and I think she was right in this. Particularly, it was entertaining, and that was very successful, but the educational element that was at all the goals, entertainment-wise, educationally, were not necessarily met. And so Michelle was right on that. Mary talked about the importance of cultural relevance, and that is so important that people within a culture are writing, or acting, or producing, and very, very much involved in the production of the soap opera. Wesley talked about 2 other things. One was celebrity influence, and then also about epilogues. Epilogues don't always seem that important in most of our programming here in the States, but even in the States, but particularly in other countries, it can be very, very effective and important. And celebrity influence, we're going to talk later on question 4. Courtney mentioned something that was funny. The advertisers did very well in this program, and Maggie 2-Minute Noodles, that was advertised on Humlog, sold 15,000 tons of noodles in 1998. So in terms of entertainment and in terms of advertising, it was very successful. In terms of education, it was only partially successful. But now let's look at the next question. How do the 9 P's of entertainment education explain why it is one of the most effective means of social influence today? And then you're supposed to go on and give a published example of research that supports your answer. Now, in a way, this was a trick question because there are many lists of 9, many, at least a couple. And some of you caught that. Jennifer particularly noticed that Brown in 2013 in his book talked about perennial and pleasurable as well as the other P's, and yet Singhal talked about proven effects and participatory. So Wesley is probably a good example of people like Jasmine, Richard, Matt, Akia, Yara, Mary, and several others that came up with these lists and recorded them in your discussion of question 2. But Wesley's was persuasive, popular, personal, participatory, passionate, persuasive, practical, profitable, and proven effects. So if you took any of those 9 P's, there wasn't just one that was right. It was any of these would have been fine. Most of them are the same. There might be one that is a little different than the other in terms of the list, 1 or 2, but for most of them it was fine. So a great discussion on that, and very interesting. And you kind of caught the confusion there over and the argument that's going on among scholars of what exactly are the 9 P's of entertainment education. Now, the last 2 questions should have been just more reflective and having to do a little research outside the text. But it says, give an example from your own life or from your observation of others as a way as to why entertainment education is influential moral teacher. And of course, Wesley, as usual, starts us off, and he starts us off with VeggieTales, and then it all exploded, and everybody's talking about VeggieTales and how interesting it was, and what their experience with it is, and what their kids' experience with it. So I thought it was just fascinating and interesting. Of course, Jennifer went on and talked about Switched at Birth, and then many of you used many different. Michelle talked about Glee. Patricia talked about American Criminal. Mine would have been Saved by the Bell. And Saved by the Bell was probably a little older than some of you, but there might be a few of you that remember it, or at least in the reruns. My boys really enjoyed when they were growing up Saved by the Bell. Peter Engel, who was the executive producer, was our dean for almost 2 years at Regent University. So he was very, then active in that particular educational program. And that was intentional on his part. I don't know if he did enough research, but he did. One other one that I want to talk to you about that was not educational, that was more entertaining than not, is a British one called Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men. If you want to talk about Bill about it and get him laughing, well, you just do that. There's apparently in the 1950s a original BBC program called Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men, and they were puppets, and they came out in the backyard, and it was originally something that you were supposed to watch as a young child with your mother, and it happened in a backyard behind a potting shed, and a sort of puppet program. But I just thought interesting, not quite entertainment education, but certainly entertainment with a little bit of educational value there. All right, many of you had others, and we don't have time to go into all of them, but I thought you did fine on that. On number 4, discuss the role of celebrities today and provide references that measure or document the influence of heroes or role models. Not all celebrities are heroes. And it's very important to make our definitions clear. Celebrities are usually someone that's known for being known. A hero is somebody that makes some kind of sacrifice, like someone who, a policeman, or a fireman, or a soldier, or a father, or someone like that, who's made a son or a daughter who's sacrificed for the mother or for the family. So that's more of the hero type. A celebrity is known just because they're known and not because they have done anything that great. So it's very important to distinguish between the two and know how who are the role models and how are the role models influencing you, influencing me, influencing our community and our culture. Now, Wesley gets points, extra points, because he quoted an article by his professors. Dr. Brown and I wrote an article on Elvis Presley identification, celebrity identification, and a few years ago in the, I think, journal called Mass Media and Society. So good for you for looking that up. Also, there was another article that Dr. Brown and I wrote in a chapter, actually, in a book by Robert Woods called Evangelical Christians in Popular Culture. And that particular one is interesting because we studied how celebrity culture in our day and our age is influencing how the church looks at spiritual leaders and pastors, those that are places of leadership and authority within the church. And I argue, and Dr. Brown argues in this chapter, that the church itself is being influenced by the culture of celebrity. And we are beginning to demand of our pastors what the culture demands of its leadership and its celebrities. And that's not always the best way for us to go. Instead of having Scripture really speak to us in prophetic ways, not prophetic meaning foreseeing the future, but prophetic meaning moral and guiding ways in that sense of the word of prophetic. Instead of Scripture speaking there, we take a lot from our culture and expect our pastors and leaders to be more like the celebrity rather than actually even the hero. But at any rate, many of you had other great examples, and that's good. So I think you're doing fine. This has been a good week for you and for your writing. I hope that you're staying warm if you're on the East Coast, because there's a lot of snow and it's very cold out there, and I've gone way over time. Sorry about that. Talk to you soon.